Hey y'all, this is Old Paths with Backpacking Florida. Today we're going to talk about endangered species. Did you know that between 200 and 2,000 animal species become extinct annually? According to the World Wildlife Fund, up to 0.1% of the approximate 2 million animal species that inhabit our planet go extinct annually. Now, why am I speaking on this topic today? Well, I want to be a voice to those that have no voice, and I want to inform you about the loss of some of our wildlife friends. How does this affect you? Well, as an inhabitant of the planet Earth, you are a part of a large biosystem, and each species within this biosystem plays an integral role, and with the loss of just one species, it could be detrimental to all. Now, I've spent much of my life in the wilderness, observing and interacting with wildlife, and now I'm completing a degree in biological science. I'm fixing to transfer to a university to get my degree in wildlife biology with the hopes that one day I can work in animal and wildlife conservation. Now, I want to talk about a few things today. First, I want to speak about some animal species that are unique and the integral roles they play within the biosystem. Secondly, I want to speak about animal species that have gone extinct and are no longer with us and what led to that extinction. And lastly, I want to speak about Florida and our own ecosystem right here in our backyard and some animals that are in threat of becoming endangered. Now, there's some interesting and unique species within our biosystem. The vulture, for instance, it's a scavenger. And the scavengers are like the custodians, and they clean up. They're the cleanup crew. Well, God has created the vulture with intelligent design for this purpose. Take, for instance, that they have no feathers upon their head. This is so they can, as they feed upon the rotting carcasses with their hooked beaks, they rip out the flesh. Of course, they get blood and bacteria upon their heads. But it doesn't get on their feathers, so it's more sanitary for this reason. They have a keen sense of smell and great eyesight just for that purpose. Now, according to the Missouri Department of Conservation, vultures have a very high acidic stomach acid, and that is to dissolve and kill all bacteria and diseases so that there's no spread of diseases. Let's talk about pollinators for a minute. Bees, for instance, play a valuable role in the human food supply chain. According to the Columbia Climate School, bees pollinate up to 250,000 different species of plants and most of the 87 food crops that we as humans rely upon for food source. 75% of the world's food source crops are pollinated, at least partially, by insects or some other form of animals. Think about a world without scavengers, how the carcasses would pile up and how it would stink in the spread of disease and bacteria. Or without these pollinators like bees that pollinate plants and increase the yield of these plants, which produce oxygen for us to breathe and also food source. Now, we live in an ecosystem, and within this ecosystem there's many different species. Now, each species is interconnected to form a web of life. Now, if this web of life is broken due to the loss of just one species, it affects all. And it could be threatening to the survival of humanity. Now, within the history of mankind, we've lost many different species. According to the Smithsonian Institute, in 1690, the dodo bird went extinct. Now, the dodo bird was geographically native to the Indian Ocean region, and as mankind introduced pigs and cats, which were predatorial to the region, they killed off the dodo bird. The Steller sea cow went extinct in 1768. Now, this was a native geographically to the northern Pacific Ocean and also to the Arctic Ocean region. And because of the hunting of their fur and oils, mankind led to their extinction. Now, sadly, we will never lay eyes upon these species again. But speaking of the Steller sea cow, it is a descendant of the dugong kind. And we have a descendant of the dugong kind right here in our own ecosystem in Florida, which brings me to my next point. which is animals within our own backyard that are endangered or threatened. Number one is the Florida manatee. The Florida manatee is a keystone species, which means it is very valuable to our ecosystem and very valuable to mankind. And with the loss of that, it could threaten the existence of mankind. The Florida manatee, there are 7,520 approximate manatees left in population. Their biggest threats are boating accidents and red tide sea events. If you would like to learn more about Florida manatees, you can visit the Florida Manatee Viewing Center in the winter months in Apollo Beach, Florida, or conservation efforts through the Lowry Park Zoo at Tampa. The next species is the Florida panther. It's the largest of two species of cats within Florida, native cats. And there's between 120 and 230 adult cats left in population. Their biggest threat is the loss of habitat and urbanization, which led to many vehicle accidents and killings of these precious animals. The females mainly inhabit the southern portion of Florida. Now, knowledge is the first step in coming to any sort of solution on how to help our wildlife friends. So let's look back and review some of the knowledge we've gained today. First, we spoke about animal species that play a valuable role in the ecosystem and those roles that they play. Second, we learned about animal species that have become extinct in the past and what led to their extinction. And lastly, we spoke about our Florida ecosystem and some of the animals that are threatened and endangered. Now, in the words of U.S. astronaut John Young, if you want to see an endangered species, get up and look in the mirror. Now, how does that tie into today's topic? Well, if we don't learn about some of the causes that led to this extinction of these key species and do something to prevent it, then we as Homo sapiens could become the next endangered species.